At what age do you start doing drugs?
I think I was about 10 years old when I started.
What does it feel like to be high?
How much do you spend on drug a day?
Do you still miss drugs or the feelings it gave you then?
In as much as you won't advise anybody to use drugs, would you say that it actually worked?
What is the biggest lesson you've learned?
I almost ran mad. I was one puff away from going insane. My spirit just told me that if you drag this thing one more time, you are going to run mad. My mind kept telling me that you are mad now, take off your clothes and start screaming. Just telling God that if he saves me from this one, I will never ever.
Would you like to reveal your identity to us today?
We brought one person who has survived drug addiction and 20 random people to ask them any question of their choice. Can the first person now ask a question?
What does it feel like to be high? I mean, that apogee level, that climax. Do you feel like at that point you are in control or something is taking over you, or are you totally oblivious of your physical environment?
Different people react to different drugs differently. Or let me say, different people react to the same drugs differently. For me, I did not have that kind of experience. For some other people, they would take the same drugs and they would have like a nervous shutdown or stuff like that. As to how it feels like to be high, for me, it made me very confident. I was 100% in control of everything I was doing, but I was just much more confident than I would have been when I was not high. For no reason, even if you have all the problems in the world, when you are high, you are just pretty much very happy. But it doesn't last for long, obviously.
Okay, at what age do you start doing drugs? And what drugs?
I think I was about 10 years old when I started smoking cigarettes. So that was how I started. My mother should not hear this, so she doesn't know this part.
My name is Archie. I've always wanted to know if you have had any misconceptions that people have when they are addicted to drugs that you had to deal with, even though it was not so.
One of the major misconceptions I know I had, drugs was solving a problem for me. It was a means of escape, but it was not really solving any problem because I grew up in a home where my dad always kept comparing me to other children. I'm an introvert. I don't talk very loud. I'm not very outspoken. So he kept comparing me to children that were more outspoken than I was then. I grew up with like a very serious low self-esteem, and the drugs made me high, in quotes. When I was high, I was able to do a lot of things that I wasn't able to do normally. The misconception was that the drugs was solving a problem for me, problem of low self-esteem, because even when people tried to help me get out of drug addiction, I felt like I did not have a problem because I wasn't causing anybody any problems. I was just on my own.
My name is Chisom.
Hi, Chisom.
What does withdrawal feel like? I've read a couple of books about people wanting to stop, but their body betrays them. I wanted to get a first-hand experience how it feels like.
Withdrawal feels like me asking you now to stop eating food forever. Not the food you like stop eating food. Drug addiction for me was survival. I was using it to cope with my issue of low self-esteem. When I had to withdraw, it was tough. Withdrawal feels painful. It feels like you are sick. It feels like energy is draining, away from your body. And especially in the first 2 weeks, in some places, they give you some other drugs to suppress the appetite for the drug you were dealing with. But mine was not like that. It was full withdrawal and it felt very tough.
It kind of puts some things into perspective because I've been hungry and maybe because I'm doing something and I can't eat immediately. I know how I feel. Then imagine feeling times 12, times 10, times 100 of that.
People get shocked when I liken withdrawing from drugs being like withdrawing from food. So when you tell them to stop without dealing with what they are dealing with, it's a lot like telling people to stop eating food without giving them an alternative to deal with hunger.
How much do you spend on drug a day?
I can't really remember, but what I can remember is that I had a budget for drugs monthly. And at the time, I was dealing, so I had a lot of money. And this was like 2000 and 11-ish. So monthly, it was going to around 200,000. But as to how much I spent a day, I can't really say. Yeah.
Do you remember who introduced you to the drugs and how you feel remembering the day now?
I remember the person. I just don't want to call his name because he almost ruined my life. I remember that day, before I used to smoke cigarettes and all, and then this boy just told me that there's something that can give you more kick. And that was how he was rapping something. And he gave me, and the kick I got that day, okay, let me not lie, it was awesome. But I mean, please don't do drugs. So now that I am sober, do I feel like I could delete that day? Yes and no. Yes, because I honestly feel like I could have been farther now in my life, in everything I'm doing, in my filmmaking. I would have been farther ahead now if I did not spend all those like 10 years doing drugs and just doing nothing.
When did you realize that you're addicted and you need to get unaddicted from the drugs? The second one is, what is the effect of your drug addiction on your loved ones? I've been with someone that did drug constantly, and it affected the relationship we had and living condition. Whenever I tried to help, they were not ready to be helped. That's why I wanted to know when it's right to step in without pushing them away.
Let me start with the second question. The way I can explain it in a layman's terms for you to understand is like when somebody is mad, the person doesn't feel shame, but their loved ones feel shame. On the person using the drugs, the stigma is not always there. I felt like I did not have a problem, but the stigma was more on my family and my loved ones. So when did I realize that I needed help? When I got expelled from university in my final year, and I spoke to my mom and she was crying. And I don't like to see my mom cry. I did not want to go back home to her because I knew that I would have to watch her cry. Somebody referred me to a rehab called Christ Against Drug Abuse Ministries. And so I decided to go there because at that point, I was already tired because I was just going in a cycle. I get high, it helps me do what I want to do. I calm down and then I feel bad, I feel low, and then the next day I get high again. There was a time I tried to stop, but I felt so sick. I thought I was going to die, and then I just caved in. I went back and I was fine. But at the time when I was expelled from 400 level, I knew that I needed to find a permanent solution to this.
Pause! Before we eventually ask you guys to subscribe as usual, we want to say Happy New Year to everyone. I know you guys missed us, but if you want us to be consistent this year, get us to 500,000 subscribers. That's the goal. If you're not subscribed, now is the time to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get back in the show and listen to this beautiful story.
My name is Bolu. At the time when you wanted to quit, when you decided to quit, what kind of support would you have loved your loved ones to give you?
When I want to do something, I just do it whether people support me or not. For people that want to go into drug recovery, one thing they would really need is support from their family, because drug addiction is kind of like being sick with malaria or typhoid. So if you're sick now and you need to go to hospital for treatment, you would want all this support you would need from your loved ones. My dad was very unsupportive, but I really did not care because my mind was already made up that I wanted to do this thing, and I just went ahead with it.
Based off the studies I've made, I've come across people who usually contribute that over time their body started resisting the levels of the drugs that they took. So did that also happen to you?
Yes, that happened to me. I will just use an example of cannabis. I started getting high on one wrap. After a while, it went to 2, it went to 3. Let me not say how much it went, but it went really high at some point. And then I remember one time, I was just very curious to know how high was like the highest high that one could get. And I remember very clearly, I almost ran mad that day. I honestly feel like I was one puff away from going insane. My spirit just told me that if you drag this thing one more time, you are going to run mad. And so I just stood up and I left the place. As I was going, my mind kept telling me that you are mad now, take off your clothes and start screaming. I went back to my room. I was so scared that I was going to run mad. So I tied my hand on my bunk so that in case I sleep and I run mad, I will just be there until somebody comes to find me. I kept just telling God that if he saves me from this one, I will never ever. But the next day I woke up, I was fine, and obviously, you know what happened.
All right. For it to be called an addiction, it must have been done over a period of time.
Yep.
Yeah. So during that period of time, what always took you back to the drugs? Is it the thrills itself or something else like stress or frustration, the likes?
It was the fact that I could not cope without being high. I could not talk to a lady. I couldn't do class presentations if I was not high because I was really, really, really shy and I had a very low self-esteem. What kept making me go back was the fact that it was working.
During the course when you were in it, was there any time you ever thought that what you were doing was dangerous to your health?
So I always knew it was dangerous to my health, but it was working. At the time, it felt like my health was not as important as my everyday life. I wasn't able just to live a normal life that people were living, except I was high. So I was high almost all day, maybe only when I was sleeping. I wasn't really eating well. I was just always high because I just needed to always be confident. So I knew it was dangerous to my health. And it annoyed me when people told me that, oh, this thing you are doing is bad. It can make you sick. Like, I'm not stupid. I know.
My name is Ajoke. What kind of drugs did you take? And at some point, when you were at the rehab, were you diagnosed with any other mental issue?
I was not diagnosed with any mental illness, but I did everything except cocaine because I couldn't afford it. It was really expensive, but I was going to get there when I could afford it.
I'm Adekpeju. What was your experience when you were in the rehab?
It's called Christ Against Drug Abuse Ministries. It's a Christian rehab owned by Redeemed Christian Church of God. It's free. What they do there ideally is replacement therapy. They take away the drugs and give you God ideally. And they tell you that when you relapse in your faith as a Christian, there's a high possibility that you are going to relapse into drug addiction. So the experience was pretty much prayer, deliverance, because with drug addiction comes other vices like being promiscuous, sometimes stealing, and people would have laid some wicked curses on you. There were people there that were armed robbers. There were people there that had killed people. There are all manner of people there. And most importantly, there were therapy sessions that helped to get to the root of why you got into drug addiction in the first place. So that's how I was able to see that my issue was low self-esteem. When you're able to find the root cause of what brought you to the point where you're using drugs, drug addiction is always easier to attack.
Thank God he was taken to the rehab. What of those that are still dealing in drugs, but, they don't know how to get out of it? It's really disheartening.
My name is Damlo. What is the pettiest thing that you've ever done in order to purchase a substance that you've abused?
I can't say it on camera. The person will kill me. I can't. I'm yet to confess to the person. I'm sorry, but I can't do it. He will kill me. The whole event just flashed in my head and I just realized that I have actually not thought about this for a long time. I never confessed to the person. I didn't think I could just answer it on camera without first discussing with the person that was involved.
I'm Nedu. I believe you're a Christian. How effective has the God factor has helped you with dealing with drug abuse? And secondly, you said you did everything aside from cocaine. So I read that 1 out of 10 persons that are involved with drugs involving with syringe are infected with HIV. So what do you think about that? And do you think it's true?
Yes, I think it's true. But at the same time, I had a lot of information. I was very careful, especially with stuff that had to do with syringe and all. The God factor is just one part. There are several other things I do and I've been doing to help me stay clean. 13 years now does not mean there have not been times when I got close, but because of the kind of life I had built around me, the kind of people I have around me, it's more difficult for me now. This year, I even had an experience that, brought me rock bottom, and I felt like after all these years, this is the time when this is finally going to happen. People say that what God cannot do does not exist. Yes, I believe that, but there are some things that God will not do for you because he gave you sense to do it. There are places I don't go. When I got into filmmaking, I intentionally did not, shoot music videos because there's a lot of drug from the artists, from the props and all that. Other people can work there and cope because that's not their weakness, but I cannot do that. At the rehab, we're told that your recovery journey is all through your life. You never get to a point where you just feel like you are clean now and then you can now decide to now start doing anything you like.
As someone who's also dealt with a form of addiction myself, what's that one event that was so gruesome, almost made you wanted to relapse?
Okay, when I was in NYC, I met this babe that I thought I was going to marry. I knew that she liked me, we liked each other, everything was good, but I just noticed that she was holding back. At some point, I asked her what was actually the problem. And then she told me that she had somebody she was going to get married to. From what she said, she didn't really want to marry the person, but her parents wanted her to marry the person because he was the same tribe as they were, and I was not the same tribe, so it was going to be an issue. That broke me in a way that I did not think it was going to break me. That was actually the first time after rehab that it got so bad I thought I was going to relapse. But apart from the God factor, what also helped me was the kind of people I had around me. There was almost nowhere I could go and do it because everybody that knew me had this certain standard that I looked at before we became friends. So it was just really difficult. So I had to just go through the heartbreak, and it was really, really difficult. I don't even know if I've recovered fully.
Amfi, is there a difference between the version of yourself before addiction and the version of yourself now?
I think that there's a very, very distinct difference between the version of myself that was using drugs and now. Right now, I don't have to be high to be confident. I can talk to pretty much anybody in this world. And I think the major difference has been God. Honestly, it may sound cliche, but that's like a very, very, very important thing that has like really made a difference between me before and now. The person I was usually always very moody. Right now, I feel like I'm usually always just unserious. I don't like when everywhere is just so serious, and so I always just try to bring down the tension. I am more productive than I was before.
What is the one thing that drug took away from you that you can never get back? And do you forgive yourself for that?
I'm on my way to forgiving myself. To a large extent, I have forgiven myself, majorly because I feel like if I knew better, I would have done better. So I cut myself some slack. But I think the one thing it took away from me is time and resources. Resources I can get back. I think I've been able to get back, but time is just something that I think that once it's gone, you cannot get back.
What's the craziest amount of money you've ever spent on drugs?
300,000. Mind you, it was in 2011. So it was a lot of money then. I was dealing drugs and I was also using. It's an expensive lifestyle and I did not have a job, obviously. So I needed to have a way where I was making money. So like I said, drug addiction comes with different other vices.
It's really personal to me. I have a friend, like a family friend, that is a drug abuse victim. He has gone to rehab multiple times. He got expelled from school. Because of that, he couldn't finish university, but he's out of the country now. So he's just living from hand to mouth, but he's still, someone I love. So I just wanted to learn from it and what could really help.
Have you ever introduced anybody to drug? And if you did, how do you feel about that now? I'm coming from a place of experience also. I think I owe it to the community out there. I was once a substance abuser also myself.
I never introduced anybody, and that's majorly because I just believe that everybody should make their own choices. Even though somebody introduced me to it, I did not see the need to introduce anybody to it. If somebody had come to me and told me he or she was dealing with low self-esteem, I probably would have recommended, but I didn't have to because I always just felt like everybody should make their own choices.
In the past, was it difficult to maintain relationships? One. And now that you're in recovery, has it been navigating relationships? Has it been tough to open up? Oh, I'm dealing with this, and how did they handle it, if any? You're bringing somebody new into your life, and you want the person to know exactly what your trigger points are, so the person don't go and expose you to those things that you don't want to be exposed to.
First of all, nobody even knew that I was even dealing with any drug addiction of any sort, because like I said, it was a coping mechanism. So you will never see me with drug, you will never see me smoking or anything, but I was just a pretty chill guy. I was very chill. I think I am very likable. I didn't have any issues navigating relationships because most people did not even know that I was dealing with this thing. Even now, it's not difficult for me because honestly, I think one of the gifts God has given me is being very likable.
Do you still miss drugs or the feelings it gave you then?
No, I don't. I am in the best part of my life now. I just regret that. I spent all those time, but I don't miss it. I feel like I'm even more confident now.
Is there anybody, or aside your mom, the community that you can say supported your recovery?
In the beginning, it was the rehab community, pastors there and the people that were in my set when I attended the rehab. The more I kept, going and building more relationships. So now I have a lot of people that actually look out for me now. This year, I went through a rough patch. Two of my closest friends came to my house and just felt like you can't be staying alone at this point. Come and stay in our house for like a week. And I have accountability partners, which is very important. They are the only ones that can understand what I feel at a certain point. Some of my friends can support me, but they don't really understand what I'm dealing with. People that we went to the rehab together, that we are accountability partners to each other. So that's where I am now in terms of community.
All right, thank you. This is for those that have engaged with drugs for over a decade now. Do you think that they are going through a possible phase of denial? They are aware that they want to stop, but they don't particularly want to accept it, perhaps as a result of the fear of being stigmatized. Did you ever go through that phase?
Drug addiction and living in denial are just beside each other. I went through a long phase of living in denial because I felt like I didn't have a problem. I was just getting high to get confident and I was doing what I wanted to do. In terms of what I needed at the time, I think I just needed to be accepted for who I was or who I am at the point. I don't want you to tell me I have a problem. I knew I had a problem, but I did not just accept that I needed help. And for somebody that is dealing with addiction to get help, you must accept that what you are doing is a problem and you must accept that you need help. But most times, people that deal with addiction just want people to accept them the way they are. Most times, they know that they have a problem.
What is one misconception that the general public has of someone that is struggling with drug addiction?
One general misconception that the society has with people dealing with addiction is that when you are dealing with an addiction, you are weak. People think that it's a moral problem, but it is not. It is just mostly a coping mechanism for people who are dealing with something deeper than addiction. So it could be alcohol, it could be, for some people, it could also be gambling that they are addicted to.
In as much as you won't advise anybody to use drugs, would you say that it actually worked? It helped your self-esteem and every other thing?
Yes, whatever shortcut you take, it will cost you. And when you cut corners, you definitely have to pay somehow. I will not exactly say low self-esteem has gone. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is that even when you feel afraid, you still do it. So right now, there are some things that I want to do. That low self-esteem thing still comes, but I just overcome it. When I was called to come and do this, the first thought that came to my head was like, me. Why would they want to talk to somebody like me? But I'm here.
The fact that it was honest to that question just made me see different perceptions to him, actually. He said, yes, it worked, but it's not good. He would never advise anybody to use it. He would never go back to it, but it sort of worked.
From your experience, what is the biggest lesson you've learned?
I think it's quite simple. Don't do drugs. That's actually the biggest lesson I've learned. The solutions you should look for when you have problems should not be temporary and should not be quick. They should be solutions that will actually give you lasting and permanent solutions to your problems.
I have a background in counseling, and I have encountered a lot of people who are into different levels of crimes. And one serious pattern I've seen is that they abuse a lot of drugs. For them to be able to do the things that they do, they need to be at a mental level that is beyond that of a normal human being. Do you think that there is a direct proportional level between the level of drug abuse and crime in our society?
Yes, I think that research will show you that very clearly. There is like a direct proportion with, I mean, it's not even in our country, everywhere. If you look at a country like Mexico, the crime there is really high because there's a lot of drugs there, there's a lot of cartels and everything. So the crime level there is crazy. There are places there that are not just safe.
Would you like to reveal your identity to us today?
I felt it was important to take the mask off because right now I am no longer who I was 10 years ago. So you cannot call me a drug addict now. I'm not ashamed of who I was. The only time a mistake is really a mistake is when you don't learn anything from it and when you cannot teach people what you learned from it.
He's an amazing person.
For him coming out here, educating people, for the younger generations, that's big ups to him.
I'm Yaro. I dealt with drug addiction for 10 plus years. I went to rehab for 1 year and I've been 13 years clean now. And I just answered questions from 20 amazing people.
Wow.
Hi.
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 I'm
Hi.
sorry if I triggered anything.
You didn't trigger anything, don't worry.
Thank God for your life. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Treat people with empathy. It was because of his dad that he started taking drugs, because of his low self-esteem.
Understand that these persons are normal human beings as you. Maybe you're not doing it because the situations haven't presented itself with the level of pressure that they were in.
Something I learned from the show is that at some point, it stops being your choice. You just have to do it. The drug, more or less, is controlling you.
Because I have experience on my own, I got to know what to do, what I did wrong, and then how to proceed.
I know that there are some people that have been suspecting that are dealing in substance. I need to move closer to them.
The things that friends around him could help him do, knowing that I could do such a thing to help my people. I mean, if they want to get helped, you know.
I learned that the rehab center Yaro went to is free, and he advised that, it can be used. And I'm going to give that to my friend.
If you're watching this and you're battling with any kind of addiction, believe me, you can beat it.
Try to seek help. We talked about rehab, therapy, and talk to someone.
Say yes to life and no to drugs.
It is very possible to be addicted and to live without addiction. I've done it, and I know a lot of people that are doing it and are still doing it today.